Welcome to the Real Demers, where we champion cinematic real-demption for the B-sides, the offbeat, and the overlooked.
We've worked in and around Hollywood and know just how hard it is to get a movie made. This is our space to celebrate cinematic misfits that we hope that you'll enjoy just as much as we do. All right, good news. The Fantastic Four are back, baby! Again.
Again.
All right, yes, it's a big superhero summer with new versions of Superman and the Fantastic Four. With all the buzz, we decided to look back at two B-sides of the Fab Four with the infamous 90s version and the reviled 2015 revamp. So strap on your spacesuits because today we're bombarding ourselves with cosmic radiation of the cinematic variety. Hello, everybody. I am one of your hosts, Greg Bellavia. I'm here with
Andres Sanglade.
And Andreas, were you big into comics as a kid?
I was. Yes, I was really big into comics. I wasn't as big into the Fantastic Four, not until later. I grew up in Germany and I would get my comics at the local bookstore on the military base because I was a military brat, and it was called the Stars and Stripes. And they had a rack in the bookstore that had all the comics. So I would read a lot of Marvel comics and DC. I mainly read Marvel and still do, but Superman is my all-time favorite comic book character. I'm looking forward to seeing how James Gunn plays with that universe. I'm also excited for the MCU Fantastic Four, but for some reason, I never read the Fantastic Four. I didn't really get into them until there was an event in the mid 2000s called Civil War, which everyone I think who is a fan of the MCU knows that there's a Captain America Civil War film, which loosely follows that's the storyline from the comics, but I learned about it. This is actually a little bit longer of a story, but I'm going to say it because I think it's a fun story. So growing up reading comics, I always saw on the back of the comic books, they would have ads for something called San Diego Comic-Con. And of course, living in Germany, I just felt so far away from that. But to me, it always sounded so cool. Like, oh my God, it must be amazing. But obviously way too far out of my grasp. I had kind of stopped reading comics around college. And in college, I just didn't want to spend the money. Also didn't know what to do with the storage of them. But there's one year I realized, hey, San Diego Comic-Con was only a couple hours away from LA. Let's go to Comic-Con. I think it'll be fun. Reading up online about how you need to handle Comic-Con, everyone was talking about you need to go to panels early. So,
oh my gosh, yeah.
But the very first panel was one called Adapting Comics to Screen. And we got there super early because I kept bugging and annoying all my friends. And they were like, fine, let's go. And we walk in and the room is completely empty. And it's in one of these ballrooms in the middle of nowhere hallway, right? It's not like Hall H or anything like that. It's completely empty except for two people. There's a young guy and then an older person. And my friend and I immediately stop and we look at each other and I go, is that? And he's like, yes. And I go, okay, we need to get a photo with him. And as we're walking over, the moderator of the panel walks out and says, oh, you can come into the green room. And we were like, hey, we're such big fans. Do you mind if we get a photo? And his assistant's like, no, 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 no. But of course, him with his massive grin and boisterous voice is like, yeah, sure. And we got a photo with him. It was Stan Lee.
That's why you get there early.
That's why you get there early. Our minds were blown. Like my very first Comic-Con panel, something I was thinking of when I was a kid, halfway around the world, and I get to basically meet Stan Lee by himself. After the panel, people were just rushing up to him and it was just a massive crowd. So no one got a photo like we did, which was amazing. The panel was called Adapting Comics to Screen. There were three other participants on the panel. There was Josh Olson, who adapted A History of Violence.
Yes.
Which was a graphic novel, David Cronenberg film with Viggo Mortensen. And then there was a comic book writer, Brian K. Vaughan, who's known for Why the Last Man and Saga, but he was also a writer on Lost and a couple of other shows. And then the third other person was some producer, did like X-Men something, he produced like the X-Men movies or something. His name was Kevin Feige.
Oh, huh. Well, I hope that individual, I hope the best wishes to them.
Right. He could go far in this business.
You got it, kid.
Obviously, he wasn't the creator of the MCU at that point, but it was still amazing to hear his love of comics and talk about, how he was the one who was really shepherding trying to get X-Men produced. So that was an incredible experience. But to bring it all the way back, I also went to another panel with Joe Quesada, who was the editor-in-chief of Marvel Comics at the time, and he talked about this event that they were going to have, and that was what Civil War ended up being. And that got me back into comics because I was super psyched based on how he was describing this event. And then it was through Civil War comics that Fantastic Four played a large part in that. And obviously it was for the MCU, it was unfortunate that they didn't have the rights to use the Fantastic Four because of how great they were in the comics in that event. So then from that, I read more. And then it wasn't really until Jonathan Hickman's Fantastic Four run that I became a massive fan and went back and read a lot of the older Fantastic Four comics. And I think Ryan North is the current writer on the Fantastic Four. And I don't know if you've read that run, but it is, it's amazing. He's got the family dynamic down. He's got the great humor, can bring it back for the dramatic and emotional gut punch. It's awesome.
That's great. I'll just say, huge comic book fan. I was a Spider-Man guy, but like I'd read anything. Our move was we'd go to Wegmans, local like grocery chain upstate New York, and my mom would just drop me off at the comic book rack while she did the shopping, and I would just read every issue I could get my hands on. So while I didn't collect everything, I kind of tried to, keep my fingers in just as what was going on with all the different titles. And to be honest, team books were never my favorite. I'd rather read Spider-Man, Hulk, Batman, Superman, like that type of thing. And I liked everybody, but Fantastic Four, similarly, they were never my favorite. But I will say, Doctor Doom was my favorite villain. I just thought he was the coolest. So whenever him and Spider-Man would have a crossover, or there was an 80s Spider-Man cartoon, not Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. It was 81, 82, I think. And there's a compilation tape, Doctor Doom, Master of the World. It's like 3 episodes put together. And I would watch that on loop. I love that because it was Spider-Man versus Doctor Doom. Amazing. That's great. But kids these days have it very easy. You have access to everything that's come out before. You've got the Marvel universe doing fantastic. They just relaunched the DC universe. But for us, it was a little bit more slim pickings when it came to stuff. So I was a scavenger for anything superhero related. By the late 80s, they were doing the Incredible Hulk TV movies following the show with Bill Bixby and like Lou Ferrigno. There was a weird The Spirit like TV pilot that didn't go anywhere. I distinctly remember being excited that that was airing. There was a show called Chameleons with Crystal Bernard from Wings. I think that was a failed pilot. This is like not great stuff, but it would just happen to be on like, we didn't have cables. It would be on like the ABC, NBC. And like, I was so excited to like, oh my God, superheroes in this. If a cartoon had a superhero episode, there's like a Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers where like Dale gets powers. That was my favorite. So it's like anything that had superheroes in it, no matter how lame it might be. And then so
how dare you? I was
all in. Very excited for like the X-Men movies, Bryan Singer, very excited for Spider-Man, like Sam Raimi, all that stuff. Fantastic Four have been kind of this weird, like there's 2 Tim Story movies that we're not talking about today.
Right.
Because they did well. Our podcast is kind of about just kind of like the oddball stuff out there. They were well regarded. They came out, but they didn't leave the largest footprint in the world, despite being successful movies that made money. And to your point, they didn't latch on to the Marvel universe. I know there was talk of maybe the Trank version, which we're going to get into, crossing over with the X-Men films. But just for some reason to date, they've never fit into any of these other grand plans. And now with this new movie coming out, maybe that'll break the chain, but we'll see. All right, so to set the stage, today we're looking at 2 films with the same basic setup. A team of 4, a brother and sister, Susan and Johnny Storm, and 2 best friends, Reed Richards and Ben Grimm, find themselves in experiments that go awry and they're bombarded by cosmic radiation. This gives them superpowers and they end up using their new abilities. They end up battling a former acquaintance or friend, someone from their past who is Dr. Doom, who has abilities of their own. And from that kind of simple through line, we're launched into 2 very different visions of what that story might look like. Same basic DNA, 2 totally different looks. So the 1994 version kind of was this infamous thing. There was talk of there's a Fantastic Four movie out there that you can't watch. So when's the first time that kind of popped up on your radar?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. I think it was probably in around the mid 2000s when people and this idea of massive cult films and followings started becoming a bit more mainstream, I think. So around that time is when I started hearing about it. And it always was this sort of elusive treasure that people wanted to watch and see, but there really was no way to see it. I mean, look, growing up in Germany and Puerto Rico, you get limited information, especially before the internet. So sure. I definitely did not hear about it until way later in my life. But you had mentioned it before in terms of how excited you were of superhero content that was coming out. In the late 80s and early 90s, if you were a comic book fan, you were absolutely starved for any sort of live action version of anything. And we're open to exploring it.
And I think just, us being a little older and like, it's not like stuff wasn't out there. Christopher Christopher Reeve Superman movies existed. Batman, Tim Burton, that was huge. But like these are the exceptions. These were not the rule. And again, you didn't have like these huge universes, now on Disney Plus, there's so many shows and everything. There was content out there, but the quality like veered all over the place. New stuff coming out, people getting adapted. That wasn't, you didn't take that stuff for granted at the time.
Right.
Now it's just we're swimming in it and like it's fantastic, but who knows how long this bubble's going to last for.
Absolutely.
I remember there being a bootleg VHS in a comic book store, like maybe like late 90s. At the time, if I went back, if the film lover in me, I would have gone back and paid for it. By the time I just remember seeing it like behind the desk where the clerk was, and I'm like, oh, okay. And then like some friends from college and I were lucky enough to kind of stumble across it in a video store that kind of like carried a little bit of everything out on Long Island. I won't name the store, but that was my first exposure to it, was seeing it several years ago. And we'll save our reactions, bad reaction then. And then with this movie coming out, definitely wanted to revisit it. And just for some history, the name associated with the 94 version that comes up is Roger Corman. Now, Roger Corman is a legendary producer, needs no introduction from us. But the real visionary behind this is Bernd Eichinger, who was a German producer and kind of a titan of the industry. So I think when you think of this project, unreleased, low budget, Fantastic Four movie, I think maybe some crueler adjectives come to mind. You might, oh, is it schlock or is it bad or whatever? But Bernd had a fascinating career, and his goal was to try and revitalize the German film industry to heights that it had experienced before World War II. So he was involved with New Constantine Film, and that was involved in projects like Neverending Story, Name of the Rose, Perfume Story of a Murderer, the Paul W.S. Anderson Resident Evil movies, Corey Yun's Dead or Alive. It's very varied content.
Yeah.
And in the 80s, he approached Stan Lee, and it took some time, but he got the rights to the Fantastic Four and Silver Surfer. He saw, obviously a ton of potential there. So in the early 90s, the rights were about to run out. And the story goes that he approached Roger Corman and his New Horizon Pictures to rush this out to prove he was doing something with the property. But never really had any intention of it seeing the light of day. And this took everybody that worked on the film by surprise. It's not like the director and the actors and everybody went in thinking, oh, this is I didn't know the term, an ash can copy.
Oh, so I've never heard that.
This was created with the intent of being an ash can copy. They didn't know, which I think comes through in the movie, and we'll talk about that in a second. But he was just basically, hey, I did something, and that gambit kind of worked off because he got paid to shelve it. Like, once the Tim Story version was coming out, he made money off of this never seeing the light of day. And while
it's hard, I'm sorry to interrupt. It's hard, I didn't know the full story. Like you said, there was always this sort of cult fascination with, oh, there's this Fantastic Four movie that just never got released. I didn't realize it was set up to fail, basically, that the intent was to shelve it. But it's hard not to think about what HBO Max did with a lot of their content that they've removed from the app. And I'll say it, there's a show I worked on that was a lot of people spent a lot of time and put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into. It's called Made for Love, stars Kristen Milioti, and I'm not just name dropping here, but I'm just letting you know that is a show that you cannot watch now. There's no version of it that exists, and it's purely for financial reasons. Yep. And the same that they did with shelving Batgirl after it was shot. I don't know what stage it was in, but it sounded like it was almost ready.
It happens to this day. Maybe a different form.
Yeah.
But same bit, you pour your blood, you pour your sweat, you pour your tears into this. And then, nope, not going to happen. On the topic of ashcan properties, and just I'm not sure when we're going to be able to talk about this in the podcast again, a few other notable examples. There was a Hobbit short from 1967, which people say apparently if you watch it, it has very little to do with the actual story. A sequel to the sex comedy Porky's.
So these are both, like, you can't find them anywhere? They were just...
No. You can find them, but the purpose of them was not with the best of intentions. It was basically just to prove, hey, I can do something.
Okay.
And there's a Hellraiser sequel minus Doug Bradley where just Pinhead does not look right. And like it's the first sequel that doesn't have Doug Bradley in it. That one looked, when the trailer dropped, everyone instantly was like, what is this? Because it just looked very low budget. And trust me, even by Hellraiser standards, that's saying something. And the thought again was probably rushed into production just to keep the rights to the Hellraiser name.
Gotcha.
So that's just other ash can material.
I always see these direct to video or straight to streaming sequels, right? Like American Psycho 2 exists. Why does that exist? I don't think it has anything to do with the American Psycho novel or even the film. Is that also something like where the producers are doing that, or is that just a cash grab?
That's a good question. I think with American Psycho, that's a cash grab. And
Okay.
I've seen American Psycho 2. She kills Patrick Bateman in the first 5 minutes.
Spoiler. Whoa.
Yeah, spoiler alert. I'm telling you, American Psycho 2 fan. But I think that was a completely different movie that they just retrofitted. It's an American Psycho film. I bet this happens more often than we think, where it's just like, if you see that title out there and it's connected to some tenuous property, that's actually a good lead into my next section. Warren Beatty and Dick Tracy.
Okay.
Do you know about this?
No, I mean, I'm a fan of that film.
Okay, so in 1990, Warren Beatty made Dick Tracy. Awesome movie. So funny that for a minute there, the in thing was old pulp serials. Batman, Dick Tracy, The Shadow, The Spirit,
The Phantom.
Also the Phantom, the Racketeer being retro.
Yeah.
And like that was great. I'm a big fan of that type of material. Dick Tracy, really great color scheme, great tone, all that jazz. But Warren Beatty owns the rights to Dick Tracy.
Right.
So technically, he has to do something with the property every once in a while. So in 2009, and as recently as 2023, he's released TV specials as Dick Tracy just to prove he's still using it.
I vaguely recall seeing something about that.
Look, Warren Beatty, national icon. He's amazing. That's a little funny that instead of just relinquishing it or letting somebody else do something with it, he's like, nope, this is mine. And he's going to strap on the suit and he's going to get in front of a camera. And that's just enough to keep it going for another few years.
Right.
That's the general setup. A movie made with the intention of keeping a property versus like the artistic pretension of making a great Fantastic Four film. I had seen it before. This was your first time.
This was my first time.
What did you think?
My honest reaction after I finished it was, I don't think the script is all that bad.
Mm-hmm.
I actually think it's a decent script that needs to be fleshed out. Like, I honestly feel like this script could be a blueprint for a Fantastic Four movie with changes. Now, look, there's obviously some hokiness involved in the film.
What?
You can't deny it. I enjoyed it. I honestly enjoyed it. You know, knowing, again, having that in the back of your head of an unobtainable film you'll never see, and then having the opportunity to see it, I'm so glad I did.
There's the meme of the guy walking with his girlfriend and him looking over his shoulder at the other woman. And that's, to me, with movies, the greatest looking over the shoulder is the unattainable thing.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't watch that. And then that spurs me to try and track it down more than anything else. There's so many classic films that maybe I haven't seen because I've been obsessed with trying to track down some oddball project instead. I watched this in the early 2000s with some college friends, and we had a good time with it. Again, to your point, look, it's a silly movie. It's a goofy movie. It's a lot of fun. It's kind of an all ages Fantastic Four, which is not something I would say the 2015 version is. But this, people throw around a TV aesthetic to a certain degree. But like, if this was on TV, this would be a lot of fun. You could throw this on. I think young kids would be into this. So even with that said, we were charmed by it in college. Now, I don't want to build it up. It's not like this is my favorite movie. We're a whole bunch of like sarcastic assholes in our early 20s. Yeah. And we had a good, we're like, that was fun. And now here I am middle-aged and I watch it again. I'm like, that was fun. So I do think it's an engaging movie. Yes, there are hardcore budget limitations. This was $1 million. And to do a giant superhero sci-fi spectacle on $1 million, that's asking a lot.
The cast and crew didn't know that this wasn't going to be released. They are giving it their all. And that is absolutely evident. It's probably the best faithful adaptation of Doctor Doom we've gotten live action.
Okay, I'm glad you brought that up. Okay, so like I said at the start of the episode, same basic template. Fantastic Four get powers. Dr. Doom's got his version of powers. Here he's more of just a guy in a souped up suit, but like he has his origin story, and they fight each other. This is the just about textbook comic book Dr. Doom. He's from Latveria, aristocratic. He's got like all this tech at his disposal. He's got minions. That's great. I think Dr. Doom, as amazing as he is a little hard to adapt because on a comic book page, you can get away with stuff that maybe you can't get away with in live action. And by that, I mean, like, on a comic book page, his introduction in Fantastic Four comics, do you know what the first adventure is?
I can't recall, no.
He sends them back in time to steal Blackbeard's treasure. That's the first appearance of Doctor Doom. And Thing ends up personating Blackbeard. It's the whole thing. That's a very comic book adventure. It's a great adventure for kids. This character that's into mysticism, into technology, they have their own country. They're very theatrical. This is easy to screw up. I don't think you can just transplant him off the page, stick him into a movie, because he's going to come off extremely theatrical, which is what we have here. This Doctor Doom is perfect for this tone, but I think for like the Marvel movies with Robert Downey Jr., you can't have a one-to-one because he would come off as incredibly hammy.
I'm going to disagree with you. I don't think he's that difficult to adapt. I think everything is there. You said it yourself. He's king of Latveria. He is into mysticism as much as he is into science. He's a genius in his own right.
Mm-hmm.
Those are phenomenal elements for a character.
They're all phenomenal. I think when you put them all together, it's a lot.
I mean, it's a lot, but I think it requires good casting. And that's why I am legit excited to see what Robert Downey Jr. does with it.
And I think that's an interesting question of, is he a variant of Tony Stark? I mean, we could totally, you and I could totally geek out right now. There's a whole...
Let's stay out of that quagmire.
Long story short, I think this is not afraid to go full force into Doctor Doom more than the Tim Story movies, more than the 2015 version. Because again, he's going to come off extremely theatrical if you go one-to-one, and they do that. But the tone of the film is so comic booky and fun and for kids. It's not lost in the shuffle. That is the shuffle. That is the story. So that's fine.
Looking at Thanos in the comics, it could very easily have come across as super cheesy and theatrical. And they did such an amazing job with it.
Absolutely. But so I like those liberties. It's not that I don't trust Marvel to figure it out. It's more of he's awesome. Look, I'm there. I'm there for the man. But like you could easily go too far. Here, when everything's campy, what can you possibly do to dent?
No, for sure. And I apologize if it sounded like I was saying you don't think the MCU can pull it off. I feel like there's enough there that you should be able to make a compelling version of him in live action.
So we're about to tackle the 2015 version in a second. I think we're going to more kind of gloss over this as compared to some of the other deep dives we do. I think what's important to point out is around this time, just other property. Yes, Tim Burton Batman's out there. The Crow was coming out. I love The Crow. Huge Crow fan. But also Lois and Clark, The New Adventures of Superman. The Flash, The 90s Show. Nightman. Mantis. The Crow Stairway to Heaven. The RoboCop live action series from 94. There was a lot of not the best comic book movie you've ever seen stuff out there. Also, if you look at Roger Corman's New Horizons, and I love Corman. I love the output. If you look at B movies in general around this time, this stands beside all of those projects. It's fine. So I think there's this level of like, oh, it's terrible. Oh, it's whatever. Oh, it's unreleased. It's not the quality of the film that prevented it from being unreleased. It was more of just a business plan. The film's fine. Yeah, it's not the best thing in the world, but for a Fantastic Four movie on a low budget, yeah, they did a good job.
I think they absolutely would have made money on selling VHSs of this. People would absolutely have bought this. I don't know about theatrical run. I don't think it's on the level of The Crow or Tim Burton's Batman, but that's only hindered by the budget.
Yeah, the only thing that the Human Torch animation at the end, not
That's true. That's fair.
But that's
fair.
That's the only element where I'm like, there's not other cheesy stuff. It's not perfect. I'm not defending that.
It's rough.
The one thing that's like, wow, that's rough is the full body animator. The other one was the Albert Pune Captain America, which did have a release and everyone hated it. So it's just like, that doesn't have a Human Torch bodysuit, but I think this is a more successful adaptation of the Fantastic Four than that as an adaptation of Captain America. I don't even hate that movie. I just think if you're a big Captain America fan, you're probably going to be disappointed by that. If you're a big Fantastic Four fan, I bet this would be charming on some level. It's in this ballpark, and that's interesting because Captain America is such like a marquee superhero, and to see him kind of and look, I love Albert Pune, but in a B movie, it was hard to find because it wasn't very well loved. I remember seeing the Shield poster in the movie theater. I got so excited, and it came in. I don't even think it was released in Rochester. If it was, certainly not by my theater. It was in a video store where my cousins lived in Oneonta, New York, a smaller town. We have to rent this, and I just remembered my family just fucking hated it. Like I'm in the forcing family movie night, and just like everyone's just sitting there like stone faced with this Captain America movie. So I could envision a version of that with this as well. But like I loved it. I was into it. So I think little kid me would have ate this up.
I was just about to say that. I would have loved this movie as a kid.
No one's saying it doesn't have flaws. If you're into Fantastic Four, 100% worth tracking down. If you're into superhero stuff and you're okay with it being a little cheesy by design, that's fine.
It would help to watch knowing that it was purposely super low budget, expected to be shelved. And I think that also helped me watch it and enjoy it a little bit more. We always open our podcast saying we know how hard it is to make movies because we've both worked on projects and we understand the trials and tribulations that happen behind the scenes. With the crew not realizing this is going to be released, I mean, it's kind of tragic. I honestly feel bad for them.
Nobody is phoning this in. You don't have to love the results.
Yeah.
Nobody's phoning it in. And here's the other thing. As terrible as the Human Torch effect is, the acting's fine. He's a fun Human Torch, but the effect, the thing looks great. Here we have this low budget movie, and they over delivered with that one. So it's like there's certain things here that are like, oh, they did. Also, Dr. Doom's suit circa early 90s looks great.
The Doom design and his suit is amazing. What the actor is doing with his voice, I'm guessing is there some modulation once he's Doom? Knowing modulation at that time is probably a pretty big post effect that they might not have wanted to spend money on.
He's kind of hard to hear. And I think that's because they just didn't put a ton of money, time, and effort into like smoothing.
Okay. Yeah. But his voice was commanding. I mean, the way they shot him, the first time you see him, you're getting this close up of just his eye inside the mask with this amazing shadow effect. And the lighting is awesome. And there's so many other elements. Sorry, go ahead.
Really good hand acting. Yes, Richards. Oh, you have 12 hours, and he does 12 in the air for the. So he's like, well, look, they can't see my face. How am I going to act? Okay, I've got to use my tools. I've got to use these hands.
You know, just as you mentioned that, I thought of V for Vendetta, right? The actor who played the main character in that. Your face is completely covered. There's only so much you can do, so you have to be a bit theatrical. So again, I'm curious to see what the MCU does with Doom, but I'm really excited for it.
Special shout out to the jeweler, aka the Timu Mole Man.
Did they not have the rights to Mole Man? Because that is absolutely the Mole Man character.
Yes, that is. They did not have the rights. I do not know why he's called the jeweler of all. I like the melding of a story that can have Mole Man and Dr. Doom in it. I'm sorry, the jeweler and Dr. Doom in it. Is it as fleshed out to the degree? No, but like it's still like they're both in it. So I think that's cool that they came up with a story that could have them both.
And honestly, I was surprised. I was not expecting to see Alicia Masters in this film, who's portrayed fantastic. You know, excuse the word. I'm trying my hardest not to say fantastic, but
she does great. It's what you want from the character. It is funny, and again, this is like the TV aspect of it, and it's charming.
Charming is a good word.
Genius falling in love.
This man, it's
absolutely charming and disarming. It's just funny. Like they have a meet cute, and then they are obsessed with each other for the rest of the film.
But I do like the moment when you discover that she's going to sculpt the memorial statues for the Fantastic Four, who everyone thinks are dead, and she had created the molds for the helmets that they wore as astronauts. And so the molds are delivered, and you learn, she's doing the memorial. So she touches the molds, and that's when she realizes that Ben Grimm is the man she ran into in the hall that she fell in love with. I actually really enjoyed that scene.
And also visual storytelling.
Yeah.
One funny random observation. Where is Castle Doom located?
Do they ever say Latveria? I couldn't figure that out.
You've got the guy saying like his eminence.
Yeah.
So you know he's from somewhere European. I just found it funny because canonically Castle Doom in Latveria. Makes sense. That's where he's from. He's in the castle. He kidnaps them. They escape. Then they're back in New York. Did they have to escape from Central Europe? Like, were they like, where are we? Right now? And like later on, they put together, it's Victor Von Doom. Like, wouldn't that be a dead giveaway? Yeah. Oh, we're stuck in Latveria. What could the connection be between? I just thought that is one of those, like, you don't even have to think about it.
Yeah, it's just the wave off. Like, if they had the budget for ADR, they would have fixed that in ADR.
You're absolutely right. I'm sure that was one of the top notes on it. In this version, they all grew up in the same house together. And I think that does such a good job of the family dynamic. They've been friends the whole time. The other thing is there was a retcon, I believe in the 80s, where with the age difference between Mr. Fantastic and Invisible Woman. That's since been kind of fixed, I think, in the 2000s where they were closer in age when they were kids. I just thought that was funny to have that. I'm like, Reed's going to get in a little trouble here when little Sue Storm had a crush on him.
To understand, so in retconned in the comics?
I think it was retconned first that she was that much younger in the 80s.
Okay.
And then in the 2000s, they were like, no good, no bueno.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
they changed it to they grew up in the same orphanage, boarding house, whatever, but they were closer in age.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good retcon.
But I like that. I
Much
like the
needed.
fact that they all grew up around each other because there's an instantaneous bond that I think some of the other movies don't always have, and we're about to talk about that in a second. Where it's listed, there's a shorthand. We don't need to introduce everybody to each other; they already know each other. If they're
Right.
already goofing around with each other, they've known each other for years. I think that helps do some storytelling lifting. That now we can get into the 2015 version. So, coming red hot off of Chronicle was director Josh Trank. Were you a Chronicle fan?
I absolutely am a Chronicle fan. I actually rewatched it a couple months ago, and I watched the director's cut available on one of the streaming services. It adds a few minutes here and there. There was only one scene I felt went a little long, and it made me realize, I had forgotten I was watching the director's cut. But I am a really big fan. That was also one of the first or second things I had seen Michael B. Jordan in.
So, I mean,
were you a fan?
Yes, it's fresh. It's still fresh. You don't
Yeah.
have any found footage superhero movies. And look, there's a ton of superhero movies right now. I think it used to be special when you got it. Not to say it's not, but like it's not like you're hungry for it. They're everywhere. And again, big summer. That's different. In a genre where maybe, you're getting just variations of the same thing. He and Max Landis, the writer, gave you something different.
Yeah, it was understandable that any studio would see that film. I think it was pretty successful, would
Yep.
see that film and view Josh Trank as an up and coming sort of visionary that might be able to help any sort of comic book property. I mean, the next logical step after seeing that film is, oh yeah, let's give this guy a chance to make a comic book film.
Absolutely. So he was fielding several offers, attracted to the Fantastic Four franchise, but he wanted to go in a more kind of grittier look. And the way he described it was a cross between Spielberg and Tim Burton. That's interesting. We'll see how much that,
Okay.
There's a lot of body horror, and he wanted to present, versions of these characters that we hadn't seen before. But while the studio was very enthusiastic up front, again, very in high demand, once dailies started to come back, studio freaked out and said, we're not doing this. So extensive reshoots, you can 100% feel that. The third act, you can tell they're doing damage control behind the scenes. There's actually a lot of stories floating around about what exactly went wrong. There was some, accusations of maybe him not acting the best. I think he's pushed back that was a little bit blown out of proportion. You can find all that stuff online. So basically that's a little bit more tabloidy than I'd like to get into, but like that's a well-documented fiasco. Movie came out, not a critical hit. Reviewers were not kind. Fans were turned off by kind of the dark look. And again, like it had this black cloud over it because people just knew there was problems behind the scenes and came and went. So I think in many ways, this is even less held in high regard than the one from the 90s. The one from the 90s was never technically released. So how upset can you be by a property that was not supposed to be viewed to begin with? This was supposed to be viewed and people were not fans. So we had not seen
people are still upset. They are livid at this version.
So we had not seen this. We were morbidly curious. Again, the number one driving factor with the new movie coming out. What did you think?
So I went into this knowing a lot of what you just mentioned. And I also knew that it was supposed to be a darker take on the Fantastic Four. I don't think it's as bad as people make it out to be. That being said, I don't know if I could recommend it, to be honest.
Okay,
I would say if people are curious, watch it. I think people who want a faithful adaptation of the Fantastic Four do not want a dark and gritty version. Mm-hmm. That being said, I do think maybe you could make a dark version if you can fully commit to it. And it's obvious by the pacing and the way this film is cut together that they're not committing to it. It seems like Josh Trank really wanted to make almost like a horror R-rated version of the Fantastic Four. And you could absolutely see those pieces while you're watching it, but no one wanted to commit to that. For me, even back in 2015, I never saw it. I didn't go to the theaters to see it, but when I heard that it was going to be this grittier take on it, I thought they were going to take elements of the Ultimate Fantastic Four run from the 2000s. That if you look at that, it makes them much younger, and the transformation of what happens to them in the comic is visually very shocking and dark. And I think if they had followed that, at least it would have given the fans something to recognize. What do you think?
I think you summed that up well. It was not as bad as people made it out to be, because I think there's a lot of interesting stuff in there. And interesting can be good or bad. A bad movie can be interesting. There's choices in here that I like. It is so compromised, and even Trank would agree with that. I think he gave this a 2-star Letterboxd review, and he was just very honest about his feelings on it. You and I talked off mic about it's nobody's best foot forward.
Right.
And like, I'm a Snyderverse defender. I'm not saying they're the best superhero movies ever made, but I enjoy them. And now that they're gone or moving in a new direction, I think eventually people are going to go back and be like, oh, that was kind of a cool swing, or that was different. It's a vision. I think his full Justice League, very interesting movie. This is nobody's complete vision. It's part of a vision and then kind of a hack job third act at the end. And they're superheroes that don't have a lot of superheroing to do. A lot of it's just them stuck in a facility. It's not a very dynamic action movie. They get their powers. It's kind of a horror movie effect where it's like, oh my gosh, what would it be like to be on fire? What would it be like if you were covered in rocks?
To me,
monster.
Those scenes were very effective. And if they had just committed to that, I think it would have made for an interesting take on it.
The darkness isn't the problem.
Right, exactly.
And I think that's where it gets lost. So to your point, it's not that you couldn't pull off a dark and gritty version. I think it takes forever for them to get the powers. I think once they get the powers, they're split up. There's literally a 1 year later.
I mean, I think we both had the same reaction to that it just came out of nowhere, right? All of a sudden, there's a 1 year later. What? They just
at
got
around
the
the 1 hour mark before Act 3.
Yeah.
So it's just like, okay, there's a Doctor Doom, but like to my point, I feel like they were afraid to lean into the theatricality of the comic. And look, I get modulation, but they over-modulated it. So it's, yes, he's from Latveria, but they don't get into the monarchy. Yes, he's a tech wizard, but he's not like building armor, and there's no mention of mysticism. He's just basically like a really smart jerk. The experiment that gives him their powers, he becomes kind of like this psychic. What would you even label his powers as?
It's not well defined because you don't even know. Like, what I really appreciated from the 1994 Fantastic Four film was there's that great scene where Sue is trying to confess to Reed that she's always had feelings for him. Mm-hmm. And then she says she's shy. And that in turn makes Reed realize, wait a minute, you said you're shy. You being shy, you disappear. Johnny is fiery and hot-tempered, so he's always turning to fire. I'm always doing too much and stretching myself too thin, so I have these abilities. And then for Ben Grimm, it's because he chooses to use brute strength over intelligence. So he's realizing, wait, there's a reason we all have these different powers. That's not something that's explored in the 2015 version. And it makes it a bit too random. Like, I really appreciated that in the 94 version. And I'll be honest, I do not know and can't remember if that is canon, like taken from the comics.
Again, we're not the two biggest Fantastic Four fans. I don't think so, but I'm not the expert.
But I really appreciated that, just sort of bringing it all together and explaining why they have these powers. In the Trank version, it's never really explained what elements they've been infected with and why they're acting the way they do. You asked me if I can define what Doom's powers are. It's like, they could be anything, honestly.
So I think, so you got Dr. Doom, the coolest comic book villain of all time.
Yeah.
As Dr. Doom, like the villain, maybe in 10 minutes of the movie. You know what I mean? Yeah. Right at the end.
But again, I think that goes with they were afraid to commit to anything. And I know I keep saying commit, but you have to know what your vision's going to be, right? From the onset. If you don't have that vision going into making something, going into production and on set, it becomes very evident when you get into post-production and start realizing, oh, there are issues here. You need to course correct. And it's obvious, like, no one knew how to course correct this.
Throw a stone, you're going to find a critic that doesn't like this. I think I like Miles Teller's Mr. Fantastic being the socially awkward guy. I like him bonding with Sue Storm. I like that Sue and Johnny's father has like a whole bunch of like young prodigies at his disposal. I like the experiment this time. Instead of being going into space, it's them potentially finding another dimension. And in that dimension, there could be more resources we could use. I guess, was that supposed to be the negative zone? They never say negative zone.
They don't really
I'm assuming that was negative zone. You could have had sequels with Annihilus and like negative zone. There's stuff here that I'm like, yeah, that is pretty good. The other problem is we're never going to know. There's no, even Trank says they never shot the scenes to make a complete version. There's no secret director's cut out there that's going to swoop in and like save everything.
Yeah, because it was taken away from him before production finished, right?
Yes. So I would
and something, sorry, I'm so sorry to interrupt. Yep. Something I really want to mention. I absolutely love, I would say my favorite thing about this movie is casting Michael B. Jordan as Johnny Storm. I like that it gives this modern take by bringing a person of color into this family.
The man is a charisma factory. I mean, you put him in anything, that's going to be a credit. The good news is he's amazing because he's the most underwritten character of the four.
Yeah.
So it's like, the good news is he's so charismatic, maybe he can save a role that's not written spectacularly well, and he still comes off like great. Isn't it funny that him and Chris Evans from the Tim Story ones, like this, wow, these are breakout charismatic guys as Human Torch, and then they end up being better known for this other stuff. I love horror movies. I don't mind a horror movie take on this. Just
agreed.
Is that what you really want to do with the Fantastic Four? The other thing is like dark and gritty. The 80s, you know, you had Frank Miller on Daredevil, you know, Wolverine and Batman. You had Alan Moore Watchmen, stuff like Squadron Supreme. But even like Spider-Man comics, you know, Kraven's Last Hunt, that's pretty dark, you know, gang war stuff. But even when Spider-Man was in a dark story, he was still Spider-Man. Right. I think the problem here is you can have a dark story, but you can't lose what you like about the characters. I like the bond between Reed Richards and Ben. They're in this, they're childhood best friends. They've been with each other the whole time. I don't necessarily feel the four of these people really enjoy each other's company at all times. And I think that's where the 94 version does the shorthand. Yeah, they grew up with each other and then they're joking around instantly.
Yeah.
Here, I just don't feel that.
Yeah, they don't spend enough time bonding. I mean, they have that montage of them building the machine, but even then it's really just rushed through. You're missing that core emotional family dynamic.
But the number one crime a movie can commit is to be boring.
Right.
That's it. I was entertained. It was interesting. It is flawed as hell. I get the people who hate it, all that jazz. I did not hate this. I'm glad we watched it.
I'm with you. I didn't hate it. I was expecting it to be way worse. I will say I've seen worse movies than this.
We're in the golden age of comic book movies.
Yeah.
And here is something that should be a layup. You know, it's like you got one of the first really successful teams, best villain, hot new director. Everything's coming up roses.
Oh. Yeah, the expectation. You're right. The expectation was there with everything else around. They had the tools to make this work, and it just didn't work.
It's fine. As opposed to saying it's bad, I would say it's compromised, and you can feel it's kind of, you're like, oh, okay. That 1 year later jump, man, they're trying to.
It's jarring. Yeah. It's jarring. It goes with the odd pace of the film that you could tell it's choppy. They're clearly trying to fix scenes and rushing it along.
And again, here is something that was released that we're like, that doesn't quite work, versus the 94 version that wasn't released that we're like, yeah, it's pretty good. And I'm not just saying that because it's an underdog. The only thing that pulls me out of the 94 one is how bad that Human Torch effect is. If that Human Torch effect was like, and again, it was done for like peanuts. If that was just marginally better, you could release that sucker. It would have been fine. Yes, it would have been goofy and charming and all that jazz, but like it would have been fine. So next to each other, I got to go with the kind of the rushed out 94 one.
It's tough to compare because they are such different films. Like honestly, the only thing that they have in common is that they're Fantastic Four films. If you want, a loyal adaptation of Fantastic Four, watch the 1994 film. And like, I would say watch the 2015 version, watch it with the intent of how would you make this work? Because I do think the elements are there. Even as I was watching it, I'm like, you know what? I probably would have done this. If you had let this scene breathe a little bit, I think the elements are there. It's just the vision was completely compromised.
Yep.
All right, let's get to our categories. Our categories is where we like to highlight some of our favorite moments and performances in the film.
There's two films here, so it's just going to be kind of like a what hits us with some of these. So heart of the film, I'd say just the family dynamics in the first one. I like seeing them hang out with each other, and that's the core of the comic. So if you can get that in the film, you've done a good job, in my opinion. So what did
Agreed. No, that was 100% what I wrote down. I said the emotional core of the film is the family dynamic between these characters. It's true for any Fantastic Four film, or it should be true for any Fantastic Four film.
I do like in 2015 the Reed Ben connection. Also, shout out Jamie Bell and Kate Amara got married. So I mean, something good came out of.
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh,
yeah.
Wow.
So two of these characters got. So thank you. 2015.
And Jamie Bell was good in the 2015 version. I mean, the cast was all really good.
People ragged on him.
I don't understand why.
I thought he did a good job.
I even like the Thing design. Sure, it's different, doesn't match exactly what the comics did, but for this darker, grittier version, I think it works.
He's probably my favorite character in this. I was surprised to see that he got blowback. I mean. Okay, favorite scene, either film.
Well, initially I had written down the scene that I spoke about before where in 1994 version where Sue attempts to tell Reed, you know, and they sort of rediscovers why they got the powers that they have. But I actually like the body horror elements in the 2015 version just because it's something different that we hadn't seen before. And it made me realize, oh, this is what they were going for. Whether it succeeded or not, they at least wanted to do something different and dark with the Fantastic Four. And it was genuinely creepy.
Yep. I'd go Escape from Castle Doom the first time, where they're really kind of using their powers in the 94 version. And I think the testing is the best part of the new one, but also weird, not Doctor Doom. Doctor Doom has this telekinesis where he's making people's heads explode.
Oh, yeah.
And when he's kind of marching through the facility and nobody can stop him, that's a cool thing. You could have done more with that, but for like a minute, he's this really imposing figure with whatever these powers are.
That was a really scene.
Any MVPs stand out?
Yes. For me, absolutely the MVP is Doctor Doom in the 1994 version, played by Joseph Culp. He's awesome. And again, it has me really excited to see what the MCU does. I do love, there's a moment, he does have a lot of good lines in the film, but there's one moment that I absolutely loved and actually made me laugh out loud is after it's, your favorite scene of the Fantastic Four escaping. He leaves, his minions are all attacking the Fantastic Four. They beat them all up and then they escape. He walks back in, just looks around and goes, huh. And then it cuts to the next scene.
Yep.
I just love that.
Also,
but again, he brings this actor, Joseph Culp, he brings such great presence. I really, really dug him as Doctor Doom.
You know, I'm going to go back and recant what I said earlier. I agree. He's the MVP. He's great. I think you can do Doctor Doom, but it's got to be campy goofy. If you're going to have everything. If you're going to have... So I think...
Oh, I still disagree.
I don't know. I think you can have the mysticism, you can have the tech. You can't have the monologuing. You can have the monologuing, you can have the tech. You can't have the you can't have every that's my thing. It's like,
but look at Thanos. He didn't have the tech. Well, he had the glove, but
Thanos is not as dramatic as the comic Thanos, who's in love. What's the Thanos comics' primary goal?
That's true. He's not as dramatic because in the comics, he's trying to basically get with death.
He's courting. He's physically courting. No, right. So I thought that they did a good job of he's courting death in a different way.
Yeah.
So it's like, I like how they did that. I would love the Doctor Doom version of that. You know what? We'll see.
We'll see.
Let's see if they can prove me wrong. If they can have him be a genius, have the tech, run a country, be a mystic, and monologue like in the comics, and it works, I will 100% say that I was wrong. I hope they can pull it off. But
I'm going to remind you.
He's great. I also would like to shout out Alex Hyde White as Reed Richards, Mr. Fantastic. I think he did a really good job because like that could be a boring character. Oh, the do-gooding smart guy who's not like cracking jokes and stuff. I think he did a really good square-jawed hero. By default, you're going to come up short compared to like this giant villain who's got like monologues and stuff. But I thought he was a good Reed Richards.
Yeah. I'll also say Miles Teller as Reed Richards I really like too. I thought he played the sort of introverted focus genius really well. Rebecca, I don't know if it's Stab or Staub, who played Sue Storm in the 94 version, was really good. They unfortunately didn't give her a lot to do. With as much as she had, that she played it really well.
Yeah, I agreed on both points. I think she did a great job what was asked. She by far did not have the most to do with that. She had to look starry-eyed at Reed and made the outfits, but she brought charisma to the role, so it's like she did a good job. I did like in the 2015 one how irrationally angry that one teacher was at all times with Reed Richards.
Right.
Your report is on what? You want to be a scientist, you little idiot? And then like during like the science fair, it's like, oh, like he's just like so mad at him at all times. Like I think Reed's in 5th grade. My daughter's going into 5th grade. I cannot imagine the teachers being like, you want to be a scientist?
Why is he just so angry with him? Like, I'd be impressed if my student was talking about this stuff.
Yeah. Oh. Miles Teller, him as the maker, the evil Reed Richards from the comic.
Dude.
It'd be awesome if they wanted to pull that off.
Honestly, that is the one villain I really want to see in the MCU is the Maker. They've done such a good job the last couple of years of making him so badass in the comics. Let's see. Who knows? That could absolutely be a possibility.
I'm just not sure if this movie has too much of like a weird association now. They would, but like he's a good actor, dude. I mean, this is a layup. You got
Right,
a
but
property
if
that
Deadpool Wolverine showed us, you could absolutely do that. It's open. The door's open to that.
he's right here. Just use the
Yeah.
actor that was
Yeah.
anyway, but
Yeah.
that'd be good. Okay, what's an underrated element that you like?
For the 94 version, I would say that, how faithful it was at adapting the source material. The underrated element for the 2015 version is the casting of Michael B. Jordan. And also that's ahead of its time.
I would go production design of 90 because again, like that looks like an underground layer for Mole Man. I'm sorry, the jeweler, and that mean like I like Castle Doom. It's on a budget, but like
Yeah.
that's Castle Doom.
Yeah.
Because if I'm a kid and I'm watching that, I'm like, great. Looks
That
like
throne
there's his
room
throne.
wide shot is awesome. That's Doom's throne room.
I do like how absolutely easily Reed Richards kicks his ass.
Yeah.
Aha, Richards. Now we will bam, bam, bam. That's it. Fight's over. three punches. So like, okay, so one of our more fun categories. Who is having the most fun?
I unfortunately don't know the actor's name, but is the jeweler's main henchman in the 1994 version is absolutely having the most fun.
I'm glad you didn't go because I think Doctor Doom would have been an easy choice.
Yeah, he's not having as much fun as this guy.
Well, okay, that guy is my number 2.
Oh, interesting. Okay, from that film, or are you picking someone from 2015?
From that film.
Oh, okay.
Because I think George Gaines from Police Academy and Punky Brewster as the professor is having a fucking ball for some reason. He's smiling up a storm. He's like writing on the chalkboard. It's like they got him in for a day, and he's like, I am going to make the most of being this professor in this college class.
Dude, I wrote that in my notes. I wrote opening on the commissioner from Police Academy. That's a bold move.
But I maybe it's because I recognize him from other things, and he absolutely was not phoning it in here. Maybe that again. I saw that.
Sorry,
early
are you talking about the professor or the henchman?
No, the professor. Because early on, I'm like, man, he's my choice. But then that goon shows up, and I'm like, this guy's pretty good.
He's so good. Yeah. He is so good. And I feel so bad. I tried to find him on IMDb, but I couldn't. Did they give him a name?
We'd have to go maybe at one point, but I do not recall them saying a name for him.
Yeah, so I couldn't, unfortunately. I don't know the actor, but he is absolutely my pick.
Also, shout out to, I like Tim Blake Nelson's Dr. Allen in the 2015 version. He's playing a good, understated, nefarious guy. Yeah. You always need that in the movie. It's Tim Blake Nelson. He's awesome. He does not have a lot to do other than to be a shadowy government operative, but he's not phoning it in.
And he's not over the top, which characters like that are easy to do. But thankfully, he doesn't.
The other thing is they use the thing on special missions, and the goal is to use the whole team for like army covert stuff. You never get his evil plan. No. You just know he's up to no good. That's the beauty of that. You're like, I don't trust this guy. And then he gets his head blown off. All right, well, what scene from either film would you show them to hook them?
I'm trying to think. I almost wanted to do both, but I'm going to go with my pick for the 94. It's the night of the rescue where after they've crashed, the 4 of them are sleeping by a fire. Mm-hmm. And the scene starts with this amazing smoky shot of the horizon. And then suddenly these military jeeps drive through the smoke and come towards them. The lighting and everything about it is so effective. The cinematography is just really, really good in that scene. But the other part of that scene is they've sort of discovered everyone's powers except for Ben Grimm. He was still human the day before, but this is the moment where they reveal that he's now the Thing. He has that great line, "What kind of thing have I turned into?" And I think for people who only know this film as an unreleased oddity, this scene showcases some of the best elements of the film. This is what I would show someone and be like, if you dug this scene, I think you'll like the rest of the film.
See, I'm almost cheating with the 2015. I'd go when the military guys in the Thing go to apprehend Reed because it looks kind of exciting. A lot of the movie isn't like that. So it's almost like a bait and switch. Like, here's the Thing apprehending Reed Richards and they're using their powers. You're like, oh, Greg, that looks pretty cool. That's like, I'm just joking with you. They don't really do too much of that.
Yeah, it's a trailer scene for sure. Like that would get anyone to watch it.
All right. T-shirt quote.
So my initial thought was what I just described with the Thing saying, what kind of thing have I turned into in the 94 version? But I would specifically say the word thing on your t-shirt, the font has to be in the sort of rocky texture that the Thing has. That was my initial thought. I have since gone with, from the 1994 version, Doom says, alive or dead, your value to me remains the same. It's just such a badass line.
I was thinking we could look. I know it's hokey, but I mean it's it's clobbering time and then flame on the back. So it's a shirt or like reversible.
Oh, nice. That's actually cool. I forgot to mention the scene where I talked about where Doctor Doom realizes they've escaped and just goes, huh? The cut to the next scene is actually the Fantastic Four symbol transition.
Yep.
That they only used that once.
You know, that's true. I didn't think about that. That's right.
When it happened, I immediately thought if they had used this throughout the entire film, now, I'm not saying with every cut, because obviously that'll just be too much, but if they had used it sporadically throughout the other film, I think it would have taken it to another level. But it's just odd that they only used it that one time.
I think confidence is so important, and I just feel of the two films, this is more confident. But to your point, leaning in even harder, because it's already campy. It's already 10 out of 10 silly. Just be silly. And again, not for every cut, but no, I agree. That's funny. I didn't think about that, but you're right.
And one other thing I wanted to bring up, because I texted this time code to you with the shock face when I saw it, is that there is a moment when Alicia Masters is being held by the jeweler and she yells at him, "I love you." And he reverts back to human form. Now, I know they've explored this a couple of times in the comics, but that's not a usual occurrence for the Thing. So is it? I don't think it is.
No. To your point, it's been a plot point at a few times. Where
exactly.
Power change entire time. To your point, never revisited again.
Right.
He turns into Ben Grimm. And then because he needs to save the day, he wants to turn back into the Thing. But then they're never like, oh yeah, I can turn that power off now.
But then at the end, when Reed and Sue get married, which he wears his Fantastic Four outfit, she's wearing a beautiful wedding dress, but he's wearing his Fantastic Four outfit. Like, that seems like the time maybe you don't want to be the Thing. Maybe you want to be back in human form for this
I
wedding.
think now that he's got like a lady friend and she's clearly into the Thing, he's like, okay, this is like my thing now. So I think I think that's what's going on there.
Gotcha.
So I'm going to invent a category, best henchman, and I'm going to give it to that guy from Fantastic Four 94.
Yes.
Because not given a ton to do, but when you're like that guy, I'm like, I know instantly who you're talking about. Yeah, so.
But he was a standout to me that I had to give a shout out to. So I'm with you. Yeah.
He's not the main villain. He's not the main villain's goons. He's not the secondary villain. He's the secondary villain's goon, and he's still standing out. That's pretty good. All right, I'll take it. And then we always wrap up with a crew shout out. Who kind of stands out to you?
I did Hillary Momberger Davis. She was the script supervisor in the 1994 Fantastic Four. She also was scripty on Being John Malkovich and Need for Speed.
Whoa, all right, great.
Yeah.
Because I know with that production, not everybody went on to like bigger stuff. So that's great to hear. Okay.
Yeah. I was pleasantly surprised when I looked her up. A couple of other known projects as well, which is great, especially for a film that wasn't released. Like you said, like, again, working in the business, any project you're on, you want it to be released so that you can add it to your credits or show people you've worked before. Like, imagine, Greg, if this was the first film you worked on and no one's seen, especially in 1994, you weren't able to look up credits online. So it's good to see that crew members who worked on this film actually were able to become successful later on. God, it's such a shame. I really do feel bad for the people who worked on it. I mean, they got great stories to tell, and obviously, we didn't talk about this, but we should mention, there is a documentary called Doomed: The Untold Story about this, which I haven't seen. Have you seen it?
I've not seen it yet.
I didn't have a chance to watch it before we recorded this, but it does make for a fascinating story. And again, there's this love and fascination with this film that I think that's good for people who love movies.
Yep. I'm going to go for 94, the cinematographer, Mark Perry. I think it's a good looking movie for no budget superhero flick. I mean, good for you, man. And then again, didn't go on to a ton of well-known stuff. It's entitled Too Good to Be True, The Sasquatch Hunters, and Playboy, Babes of Baywatch.
Did he work with Corman a lot, after this?
I don't know if in a role other than cinematographer.
Got it.
But not a lot really popped up in that regard. If I saw this and I was a low-budget filmmaker, I would love to work with him.
Hands down.
Again, to your point,
my favorite scene.
Yeah,
my favorite scene. scene where, sorry, not my favorite scene, but the scene I would show someone, that night rescue, the cinematography was great. Oh, I also wanted to shout out, so going from the night rescue and cutting into the sort of montage of the doctor examining them, I thought was fantastic. And I also like that you don't know that that doctor was actually working with Dr. Doom. So it's revealed that it's actually Doom that rescues them.
That goes back to my where is that castle? All right, I have to go back and watch the movie. So, and for the 2015. I like all different categories, and sometimes, you know, I hate to like name like a superstar, but like I'm going to call out Marco Beltrami, who's a huge name for the soundtrack. Worked on Scream, Hellboy, Snowpiercer, the more recent like Fear Street movies. Like a fantastic resume. That is the glue that holds this Frankenstein's monster together.
Yeah.
I think it's appropriate music for kind of this dark vision. It's a fine score. Like you can rag on how it doesn't come together. Maybe the visuals aren't your thing. I don't think you could have any problem. The score is fine. The score is untouchable. So it's like he's a professional. He's done a whole bunch of stuff. I enjoyed that. I think that's an unassailable part of the film.
Yeah, I began talking about the 2015 version saying I don't know if I would recommend it. I would recommend it, but I think it's important to watch it knowing that, like you said, it's keeping Frankenstein together. The stitches are there.
No, I think if you're listening to this podcast, clearly you like out there offbeat stuff. Sure,
Right.
Throw it on. And I don't know about you. There was by the halfway point, it was starting to win me over. I'm like, why didn't people like this?
Same.
And then the third act rolls around. You're like, oh, okay, I get it. So it's like, I think there's even like a momentum. You kind of get along with the movie for a second, and it just can't keep it together.
No, I'm with you. I think I had the same response. I was starting to get more and more with it, and then the pacing issues took over. And I think that shocking moment of it being 1 year later, right after they get their powers, hinders it a lot, because that's where, to me, the stitches that were keeping it together were really starting to show. I'm sighing and I'm stuttering because I could see the elements are there to make the film work. Again, whether you want a dark version of the Fantastic Four or not, sure. If you're going to watch this hoping it's a lighter version, you're not getting that.
No.
But the elements to make a darker Fantastic Four film are there, and it's frustrating to know how close they were to it, whether that's something you want or not.
I saw Trank's follow-up movie, Capone, with Tom Hardy. That's an interesting flick. I think he's an interesting filmmaker. Again, I know there's behind-the-scenes stuff. I wish everybody the best. I would love to see more from him in the future at some point.
Yeah.
And so it's just like I hope this doesn't. Again, there was circumstances. Hopefully, all the problems are worked out behind the scenes for everybody. It's an interesting take. How much you get out of that, that's fine. But I'll take an interesting take versus something that's completely phoned in.
Agreed. I think that's a great statement to end on.
And that's that. I mean, I'm not sure if you need to be a lifelong comics fan to enjoy these films, but we did. And, you know, I think there's a lot of charm in the 90s one and even the 2000s one, as absolutely reviled as it is. We still had a good time with it. Thank you for joining us today, and we'll see you next time on The Real Demers.
If you enjoyed what you heard, please support by leaving a like or a review on whatever platform you listen to podcasts. If you want to reach out and send a comment, you can email us at reeldeemers@gmail.com. You can find us on Bluesky and Instagram at reeldeemers. Our music is by Adolfo Delanoy. You can check him out on Instagram at Adolfo Delanoy. Thanks again, and be safe.